This is Krystal with today's episode of Living the Wiccan Life, Dreams Part 2. In the last episode, I mentioned that it is easier to have psychic experiences in dreams because the conscious, rational mind is quiet and isn't causing static. It is easier for the inner self, the higher self, and your guides to get through to you. Today I want to share some of the experiences, some of the psychic experiences that I and my family have had in dreams. The first one I want to share with you is my favorite. Years ago, when I was married to my first husband, we had 2 small children. He had 2 children from a former marriage. All 4 of us and myself went with my sister and her 3 children over by the Wabash River in Indiana for a cookout with my stepfather. The children's mother was in the hospital, and we were keeping them for 2 weeks while she was in the hospital and then recovered. My stepdaughter was 7 years old, and her mother had given her a favorite necklace of hers with the medallion of a Catholic saint on it. Her mother was Catholic, to keep for her. We enjoyed ourselves, and when we were almost back home in Illinois, about a 15-mile drive, my stepdaughter Vicki noticed that the medallion was gone. She was heartbroken. She felt she had failed her mother. We searched the car high and low. We did not find it. I called my stepfather. He hadn't seen it. So I told Vicki that before she went to sleep, she should pray that she would be shown where the necklace was. She tried this for 2 nights and nothing happened. On the 3rd night, I prayed to find the necklace. In my dream, which was very clear, I pulled into the drive of my stepfather's cabin, stepped up the half-round step that he had, opened the screen door, which led into his kitchen. He was sitting at the table, and he picked up something from the table, and he said, "Here, babe, is this it?" I woke up joyful. I called my stepfather. He hadn't seen it, but he said that I could come over and look for it. I pulled into the drive, stepped on the step, opened the screen door, and he picked it up from the table, and he said, "Here, babe, is this it?" He'd found it within 3 feet of the stone step. One of the clearest examples in dreams of psychic ability. When my children were teenagers, and being of the Correllian family, they were not excessively normal and excessively well-adjusted. They had personality. They enjoyed life. I got a lot of gray hairs from this attitude. But I learned that I would dream when they were about to get in trouble or had done so. I would dream that they were in muddy water and how bad the trouble was. I was shown on how difficult it was to get them out of the water. I got so when I had such a dream, I would tell them, if you're thinking of doing something you should not do, don't. I dreamed of muddy water. After they grew up, they told me that they began listening to me. They would not reassure my mind on that subject while they were still teenagers. Another dream I had involving them, my mother had died within that year. And in my dream, there's this lovely, ornate, white door with green inset panels lying in the front yard. So in the dream, I asked my mother, who was there, how did the door get there? Did the boys do this? And she wouldn't tell me, which in real life she wouldn't have told me either. I talked to the boys later, and it either happened just before or the night of. They had been partying at a friend's whose parents was out of town. There were many people there unknown to them. A fight broke out. My younger son got swept into the house with some of the people who didn't like him, and the door was shut and locked. My other son and his friends went through the door, and it did match the description in the dream. One of the symbols of dying in our family, among the symbols, is if there's a bird in the house or even on the porch, that is almost always a symbol of impending death. The day my stepfather died, there was a bird perched inside the mailbox on my porch. Another symbol is a missing tooth or teeth. About 2 weeks before the Reverend Don's father died, he dreamed of his mother, who was then dead. In the dream, Don's mother was pregnant, and she lost a tooth during delivery. Losing a tooth is a very traditional sign, or losing teeth, of impending death. Don knew that his father was probably not going to be around long, and it was indeed so, as within 2 weeks he had died. It is easy to access past lives in dreams. All of my knowledge of my past lives comes from dreams, the first one being when I was about 6 or 7 years old. Every dream I've had since then of a past life, and there have been 7 or 8 of them, have all been very vivid and very real. And the emotional connection that I have in the dream and the feelings, one of the earlier ones, not the first, I was 13 years old. I was going steady with a neighbor boy. I was wearing his ring with a red stone in it. And I dreamed that I was a grown woman in a place that I knew was Australia. It was like a mining town, just a sea of mud, wooden planks, and I was looking for my husband, whom I never did find. But the feelings, the emotions of loving him, not being able to find him, of worry about him, stayed with me for years. And in the dream, I was wearing a ring that was my wedding ring, that had a stone that was either a ruby or a garnet and a small diamond on either side. I have found rings like that in antique stores, and just seeing them brings back still to this day the feeling and the emotion of that past life dream. Thank you for visiting me.